Work.
Passionate.
Inspiring. Fascinating. Freemium.
Community. Dynamic. Informative. Insightful. And interactive.
The Business of Creating Institute was founded in order to offer the types of learnings that people normally wouldn't get outside of universities and colleges. Most people think of our industry as like this entire creative field, which it is. You know, you talk about the writers and the actors and so on. But with the Business of Creating Institute, it really looks at it as from a business perspective and actually looks at both sides, the creative side as well as the business side.
We're very proud of the fact that we are able to get the top executives and top professionals to come in and voluntarily give this up-to-date information. We have financing, distribution, using influencers in your projects. We have how do you create that trailer and that lookbook and all of these materials so that you can go in empowered with all the correct information when you're having that meeting at the production company or at the studio.
A big part of the Business of Creating is demystifying the process that people feel that they don't have access to. You know, very often people feel like Hollywood is, you have to know the right person. You have to be of a certain income group. You know, and here we create more of like a level playing field, you know, for everyone to be able to learn and come into the business and get their projects made.
We want you to know exactly how to do things and to be able to network and do that professional development so that you can be successful.
The Business of Creating, I think the ideal person is a creative who's writing, directing, producing, animating, someone that's actually already out there putting an action plan to their creative path.
Folks who have, started off really, they've done their homework, but they're trying to make it to that next step.
Even if the topic at these Business of Creating panels aren't necessarily your line of work, it's just really helpful to get a broader understanding of what's happening across the industry.
You're really going to, I think, build out your community, which I think is what is really important for creatives.
My very first panel, we talked about being able to develop your pitch in a large IP reboot world. And it was an amazing conversation.
I know for me, it's been quite a lot of meeting really great people in a kind of smaller setting, but that's really made some really strong connection.
It reminds me a lot of the Renaissance, where it's not just, they talk about the Medicis. It wasn't just them patronizing all these experts in the fields, but it was also the cross-pollinization of these different disciplines. So I love seeing all these different creators be able to get a feel for all these different disciplines and pull that all together.
These Business of Creating events are just, amazing.
Educate, empower, succeed. That's our motto.
The panels are very useful for any filmmaker that would ever want more information about the business side.
I would recommend these type of panels to all of my friends, especially these young filmmakers coming up.
You're in person, you can use them as a balance board, and you're not going to be able to get that from just reading a trade.
I highly recommend the Business of Creating panels to any professionals who want to up-level.
Kick-ass. Can I say that? It's kick-ass? Yeah, it's kick-ass.
Shout out to the Business of Creating. Hope to see you all at some panels soon.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And please take advantage of the fact that Mitch is here because he's awesome to work with. That right there is the bottom line. This is somebody you want to work with, you guys. So thank you so much. All right. So you guys, get your notepads ready, get your pens ready, get everything ready because you're going to be taking so many notes tonight. We have got the lineup of my dreams right here. You guys, first and foremost, we have Luis Ricardo Lopez. Yeah, welcome, welcome. Louise is the founder of Guarassi Ventures Incorporated, which consults in strategy in film and television production. Louise is an executive with over a decade of experience in Hollywood studios, working for studios and production companies such as Sony TV, HBO, Happy Madison, among others. He has financial and operational experience in the various stages of television production, especially in the design of the financial and accounting structures of productions, application of incentives for television and film. Well, hello, sir. At a global level, including production planning and distribution and marketing of the works. Let's be real, he knows how to get a film or a TV project made and strategically distributed. I think I'm going to sit right here. All right, so he studied film and TV production and critical studies at Cal Arts, where he got his MFA. And prior to that, he was at UCLA, where he studied culture, performance, art, and communications. Everybody, welcome Louise. All right, next up, you guys, the dream continues. It's Ricky Andres. Yeah, Ricky is a Los Angeles-born production accountant and production finance consultant, currently working on a 5-part documentary for HBO titled The Body in the Snow. He's known for his work on such shows as The Bachelor, American Ninja Warrior, and the reboot of Unsolved Mysteries over at Netflix. And all of these productions have one commonality. They're all physically shot on location. Well, hello, sir. Okay, you got to make room in between y'all for me. Ricky is a Chapman Film School alum that evolved into the world of accounting and budgeting by pure curiosity. And he owes a lot of credit to jumping in the business immediately after exiting the classroom. As he says, I felt like I was still in the classroom while on my first few jobs in the business, and that mindset has never left. There's so much to learn in such an evolving and exciting environment like entertainment. It's never quite boring to me. Scary sometimes, but never boring. Let's give it up for Ricky Andres, everybody. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's girl power coming in right now. Everybody welcome Nicole Ameln. Indeed, Nicole is the president and founder of North Star Incentives. She has 30, I can't believe that's true, she has 30 years of tax experience, 20 years entirely focused on production incentive and tax planning for the entertainment industry. Nicole has held positions at Fox Studios, Deloitte & Touche LLP, and White & Case LLP. Prior to establishing North Star Incentives, she earned an MBA in public accounting from Pace University's Lubin School of Business, as well as a JD from Pace University's School of Law. In addition, Nicole has worked on independent films as a production manager and coordinator. We're getting the whole picture tonight. Everybody, please welcome Nicole. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, it's my partner in crime, Michael Fisk. Michael is the co-founder of our Business of Creating Institute series. He is the founder of Pangram Entertainment, which focuses on global film and television projects, especially with stories at the crossroads between countries, languages, and cultures. In addition to this, he is the co-founder of Interstellar Entertainment. As an executive producer, you may have seen some of his films, y'all. His films include Ferrari, that opened up last December. That was the Michael Mann film with Penelope Cruz and Adam Driver. Fantastic. Their most recent film is the horror comedy, which is titled Ick. Yeah, okay, see, they got it. They got the laughs. It was selected to have its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival in September. It's directed by Grammy-winning director Joseph Kahn, starring Brandon Ruth and Mina Suvari, and produced by Steven Schneider. Now, before doing all of this, Michael, was a senior executive in the entertainment industry, having spearheaded over 500 campaigns for studios like Sony Pictures, Lionsgate, NBC Universal, Warner Brothers, and MGM Amazon. Everybody, a warm welcome for Michael! Okay, y'all. I'm glad I got some water because my mouth is going to be hanging open from all this great information they're going to be giving us. All right, you guys, let's dive in really quick. So if we can jump into the next slide. Yeah.
We
We're
just
good?
wanted to start with this one first. Just like 30 seconds is very often people, like as filmmakers, are always like, you're looking for money, right? You're trying to figure out how do you make your TV and film project. And what this panel is specifically about is, okay, we're not talking about investors, venture capital, or pre-sales or co-productions or crowdfunding. We're focusing on tax credits and incentives in the bottom right, and also the bottom middle, and then the government grants. So when we're talking about where to get money from, what we're talking about here is, just to kind of give it the perspective, is that and that, those bottom two right sides, okay? I mean, there's many ways you can make projects and get money. This is specifically about those incentives.
So as we were saying earlier, if you want to have a meeting with your private investors and the pre-sales and the co-productions, please invite us. We would like to be a part of that conversation. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, tax credits, tax incentives, grants. Oh my goodness. Let's check it out. Dustin, next slide. So we're going to do our quick overview, aren't we, you guys? All right, so a couple of quick definitions. We probably already know them, but let's keep them in the front of our brains. What are opinion letters, FAM tools, loan out withholding? Who would like to start us out? Nicole, what's an opinion letter?
So an opinion letter is when you get your bank financing from tax credits, grants, rebates, or any of that type of money. In order for them to advance the money to you, they will ask for an opinion that is not yours. And so you have to hire someone to give them an opinion letter so that they make the loan on it. So the banks will pay you 90 cents usually on whatever opinion I draft. Mm-hmm. They'll give you 90 cents of whatever I put down on my opinion letter. So it's an opinion letter saying, based on your budget, how much will the incentive will we get back? And then they finance it. And that's advanced money. So that's money to be spent on your show. You can get that in advance.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And so do you have to do that letter? Can Ricky do that letter as an accountant, or can my mom do it?
No.
It's not called my or your opinion letter, no. I guess. I guess we're trying to figure out.
So the banks typically have certain people that are able to do that. And so
they have their own team already in there.
Yeah, you have to get approved by the whole bank system in order to actually draft those letters. So you have to really be an expert in it. Yeah.
Okay, so my cousin, no?
Nope.
Darn it. Mm-mm. I was set. I had an action plan for tomorrow.
Not a letter from the people giving the grant.
No. Okay. So, right, because that's a government official. And so that's basically like if you had, that's not what the government does. They don't figure out what your incentive is. They will audit it at the end of the show to tell you what they're going to pay you, but they're not going to tell you how much you're going to get from the incentive based on a budget that you're going to shoot.
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
Does this person writing the letter, do they have to like be the production coordinator, whoever's on your team, to tell you I'm planning on spending X amount of money?
Yeah. So the way it would work is I would be approached that says, so you've got all your money, you're ready to shoot basically. And your last money typically in is the incentive money. It's a sure thing for the most part, as long as you do what you're following the rules. But so by that point, you'll come to me with your budget. So everybody's approved that budget. They say it's locked. It never is. But typically they'll give you a locked budget that your line producer will put together. I will go through that budget line by line with my production accountants, or actually who'll do that. And we'll figure out what we think the incentive will be for you. And then we'll hand that over to the bank and say, this is what I think they'll get. And the bank doesn't, to be honest with you, I'm going to use the word trust. The producers, because you're the ones that want it, so they really need a third, party, independent party to like tell them, what do you think they're actually going to get? And so that's the letter that I would draft, and then the bank will just offer the opinion letter, because that's all you have. You don't have an accounting, you don't have a GL yet, you don't have anything. So it's the budget, and then they'll give you, as I said, about 90% of the number I give them. And then at the end of it, you'll repay the loan with the incentive when it comes in from the government. I mean,
Like think of it like a letter of recommendation, but it's coming from like somebody in their circle that's vetted, basically, right? So it's like she's a vetted vendor that can give those, or and those companies can be law firms or financial firms. And she's right, territories change. Like in Spain, you could do this, and then you could take that document from Hacienda, which is who handles the incentive, and go to the bank, and they'll upfront you the amount and take 5%.
Okay, and then what is FAM tours?
So FAM tour is a familiarization tour. That's what the FAM stands for. And these are certain things that happen through different parts of government. It could be like tourism, economic development, investor circles. And so, for example, right now I'm working to try to put up some FAM tours for a couple groups. And it could be in cohorts with the let's say the film office in one territory, or it could actually be somebody else making it for more of a let's say a local place, like let's say California. And then there's no federal here, right? So if I was doing it somewhere else abroad, maybe I'm going to, let's say, Canary Islands, and then from there, like Spain says, okay, we approve your FAM tour. Have you identified executives that would want to go? So let's say Michael or Ricky or Nicole, let's say if they have projects in the pipeline or studio or independent world, then you kind of get picked and you go. And some of these FAM tours, the VIP ones, like everything's covered, and of course you're in a nice spot and it covers flights. But there are some FAM tours that are maybe like they're not so big and they can't give you the flight. So maybe you get there, but once you land, they take care of you. So that's depends on the territory. So I've seen these in the international space mostly.
Yeah, it's like a very in-depth location scout.
Ooh, fun.
But lots of bells and whistles and that sort of thing.
I'm in. I can leave Tuesday. So then what is loan out withholding? I know we're going to jump into that more later on the heads up, watch out, y'all.
Yeah, just we'll talk about it more later, but generally speaking, a loan out in this industry is it's an industry specific understanding of how you're engaging talent and crew. Typically it's key department heads, and it's also your above the line talent usually. And they have companies that they then work for. And then the production company that they're working for then would hire them as a loaned out employee. And there is a withholding that's required in incentives in order to qualify the cost of that payment to the loan out. Generally, that's how it's an important concept, and it's actually it's where I see most of the problems.
Okay, and that's jumping in a little bit later in our discussion. Dustin, if we could switch to the next one. Okay, so our overview of our production incentives. Where do film offices sit? To whom do they report? And how do these things work? I love the free money question. I'm there. Okay, so tell me more. So I need to go to the film offices, and where do they report? And walk me through, the kindergarten version of it, so then we can dive deeper.
I think I'm kind of fresh with this because I'm dealing with them right now. The film office itself, let's say the Massachusetts Film Office, they report directly to the government. We pretty much give them all the details they need. They audit everything that we have, and then they present that to the government. It's a misconception that film offices work with the government. Sometimes they're on the actual premises of a government office, but they're their own entity. So they primarily are the people that hand off all your information, all your spending, all your details to the actual government. So they do have that connection, which is great, which is why you have to go through the film office. And they also have the details that you need to give to the government. So they're a great middleman, but sometimes they can sort of lack the information because they're not the government. And a lot of people think they're the Department of Revenue or the Franchise Tax Board, that sort of thing. So they sit kind of right in the middle.
I mean, I agree completely with Ricky. And then there's times when they're totally outside. Like they're like nowhere near government. Like I know it says economic development there, but I think at Amazon, that's where like kind of the incentives people talk with finance and everything. But I mean, there's places that can live in tourism and cultural affairs. You can live in, he said, like, economic development, or it could be anything. I mean, it's labor relations sometimes. So you always have to like ask where, like Massachusetts is specific, New Mexico specific, California specific, and sometimes they may be the best person, but sometimes they potentially like can maybe not be. For example, I dealt with a certain film commission one time, and I think I'm still waiting for that phone call. But I already knew the people on the ground, so I could go to producers to say, who do I go to really to push the paperwork through? So that's kind of why you need to know who the people are that push the button.
I don't have any problem with film offices. They're typically location scouts or producers, so they sort of understand this world. And incentives in general are born out of the ability to bring jobs to the location and to promote the jurisdiction that you're in. That's why they're giving you the money. They're giving you money so that they make money. Right. So typically I see a lot of the film offices sit in, cultural affairs, anything tourism, anything that's going to sort of, how do we give away money and make money from giving away that money? That's the whole game, essentially. They're not going to give you any money until they're going to get something for it.
But they're like the film commissions are the ones that have the bucket of money in an account. It still goes to the government, right? They don't hold, they're not the ones that give it out. It's still, they are
if it's a refundable, like a grant or a rebate or cash, that money is set aside for them. So can we kind of like dial back for a minute? Just overall, there's different types of incentives. There's those that are given through the tax credit system, which is the Department of Revenues, and then there's some through the film offices, which are an allocated fund of money. And it's an interesting concept because this is how timing works about when you're going to get the money. How quickly can you get it? It's quick if you're going to work with a film office that has a cash rebate and they have a fund of money in cash. You hand over what you did and they hand you a check. So they do give it to you in cash. But it's really hard to get money, as you know, for anybody to if somebody's going to ask you for money, you'd have to think about how you're going to get that money and where to do it. So the way governments do it is they've gone through the tax system. It's easier than allocating money. So as you look around the world, how these incentives are delivered to you are different. And it's all based on whether they have the money to allocate or you're going to have a transferable tax credit where the government will receive less revenue. That means they don't need to allocate any money to it. That means they're going to collect less tax. So it depends on where the money comes from, whether it's the film office is cash, rebates, grants, those types of things. And then the Department of Revenues will get involved with the film office when it's a refundable tax credit or a transferable one. And the refundable, so the check is written from the Department of Revenues or Department of Taxations for refundable tax credits. And transferables are, again, it's just they collect less revenue. And then you'd have to sell it, which we can kind of.
Yeah. I was going to say, does anybody else need an Advil right now?
Sorry. I love this stuff.
I know, it is super
I think
fantastic.
we can all agree it's very complicated.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just one-off. It can be, but it depends when you're going international, right?
Well, in all of these examples that you're giving us, number one, are you coming forth with all of these guaranteed ROIs and KPIs, or are you already coming to all of these film offices with all of this corporate muscle behind you and A-list talent to make everything so flashy and guaranteed?
No.
Yeah, KPIs are involved, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it's like the government gets involved sometimes if you're not dealing with a film commission that can actually give you cash. So you sort of have to jump through the hoops of like a basic company that's doing their taxes. and it gets just really complicated and construed. And like they think we're all millionaires. They think we're all sitting by the beach. They don't think that we're like in an office doing a job. So they don't really take it as like you're doing something special. You're just another
freeloader.
Yeah, you're another freeloader. Yeah, basically.
And I think that's the reason a lot of times, it's about whose door do you push? Because if you don't push on the right door, they may just be like, avoid you because they don't know. And sometimes that's why in the US, there's certain jurisdictions where they're at risk because the government people are trying to change the law and they don't understand that this gives money and gives jobs. And there's a whole ecosystem that comes with it.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a question on live chat. Haley asks, what is a KPI?
Oh yeah, what's a KPI?
It's short for key performance indicator. So it's basically saying, sorry, it's basically what this gentleman was asking for is like, how do you prove that you hit certain milestones? And I think you're trying to say is like, if I understand correctly, what you were also asking is, do the film commissions, the government care about like this script or this actor's attached to it? Like, do they go through reading it, or is it case by case? Do you have to prove it, or is it more of like, okay, yeah, so it's
No, it's easy money. It's easy money. Spend it, you get it.
I mean, I agree, but also I think there's an example where somebody was talking to a film office when they read the script. They're like, sorry, you can't talk about that here in this jurisdiction of the country or region. And the show had to pivot at that point, and then it actually went to Thailand. So, there are some places where, again, abroad, right? And in the other worlds that exist and like cultures, there might be a script clearance coordinator or a script clearance that needs to happen. There's also cultural tests that need to happen, So for example, when Black Panther went to Norway, just because Black Panther was a sci-fi thing, it checked in a cultural box for them. There's actually a cultural test, but because it was sci-fi, that kind of was waived. So it is a case by case. Although it is money and there's talent and they do want the big shows and the big productions, even if I had that show and you don't have the crew, then you're not going to give me the incentive in time, and that's a problem. And so those are the things that like Ricky's looking at. Like, can they really give me the money back in a year? Have you done it before? Have you gotten it in 2 years? Is there an issue? When was the last time you were there? And who do you talk to? And I'm pretty sure you have a whole network of accountants you call, as I do.
And you do have to ask those questions like deeply over and over again, because sometimes you get shifted to another person who just has your paperwork on their desk and they have no idea what it is. They're just doing their job. All the legwork you did by building relationships is kind of out the window. So it's a lot of hand holding, a lot of talking on the phone.
And even when there's changes in government, that can also happen. For example, I have a Central American jurisdiction. They have a brand new president. He's very film forward. So now they're doing a push to bring productions there. So it's like, okay, we're open for business. We did 007, Quantum of Solace, and Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad. And so like these things that they like, so everything is different. Like I don't live in that one size fits all.
So to clarify that for myself and for others, could I go to each film office, like if I'm in the States, and say, hey man, what are the boxes I need to tick? What are the, is there anything I can't have in my script, et cetera, et cetera? The film office would have that.
Here, there is no, actually, no. I was going to say there is no censorship, but there is a territory where teenagers cannot simulate sex. And I was told over the phone, X, Y, and Z show cannot film here. And we're welcoming everybody else, but if there's anybody that has any copulation of any, and they're teenagers, and it's insinuated, we will not welcome that show here in the USA.
I kind of just want to say there are billions of dollars being given away. There's plenty of money for every show that this room is going to make. Anywhere you want, there's tons of money. It's available to you, and you just have to follow rules. That's it.
Okay. And you have to ask again and again and again, in case people, change jobs, in case something shuts down.
I feel like we're complaining, but we're not. It gets better.
No, this is perfect.
This is great.
These are facts, man. These are facts.
Money.
You wouldn't know this until you're neck deep in it. And so thank hallelujah, y'all are here tonight. Let the sun shine. Right? That's the meme that's going to be taken away from this entire conversation, y'all. Dustin, can we jump on the next slide? I think we're on slide 3, you guys, out of like 5,000. Cool.
Yeah, I just had a question. Whether it's a tax incentive or it's a rebate or a tax incentive, the the same thing, right? It's like I go
To
and
you,
money
yeah.
to the production means the same.
It's just cash.
Yeah.
Just call it cash. Any way you get it, it's going to end up being cash to you.
Yeah. And I love that people are taking pictures right now because look at all these beautiful
This is all
definitions that
cash.
Michael has
This is
written
all
up
cash.
for you.
We're not going to go through all the details here, but it was, again, like that first slide we showed, just to kind of give perspective.
Yeah.
Because there's so many nuances, as a panelist we've talked about afterwards, there's so many nuances to this entire topic. This is more to give it more of an overview so you feel better educated to understand what are the questions to ask and so on. But if you just want to understand where the incentives come from, they do come from what you're asking, grants and rebates. And even it was interesting, opportunity zones. I was in China last year and they don't really give tax incentives. They have an opportunity zone somewhere and then they'll help, cover the costs that way. So there's multiple ways you can get it done. And there's many different terms.
So we're mainly focusing on the grants, rebates, refundable tax credits, and the transferable tax credits. Those are our main hot zones this evening, you guys. But again, check it out. All these potential monetary sources for you this evening. All right. So yeah, take a picture. Now's your chance. Everybody smile. You're on camera.
And this is both U.S. and
international.
Both U.S. and international. Yeah, absolutely.
Question. That's our next slide.
Okay,
Next
thank you.
slide.
Yeah, you guys look at us powering through. Yeah. Okay, so now our international thank you, Joes, for teeing up our next slide. International incentives. So what are popular international filming locations that offer lucrative incentives? And then I love how it's such a round, fireside type of chat, because we've already started talking about what are the requirements, how are they different than U.S. incentives. All right, you guys, Ricky, I'm going to tee it up for you right now, Ricky and Luis. Well, everybody really. I don't know why I'm picking and choosing tonight.
Nah.
Yeah, I'm like, Ricky, tell me all about this. You're like, I was just in Massachusetts, so tell me about.
I'll start off with the first one. Internationally, pretty much UK is just open. Everything from London. London's kind of expensive. Ireland is great. Ireland has some really, really good incentives. And for the most part, it's anywhere in between 30% and 40%. I believe the only country that does 50% is Japan, I believe. But for the most part, Spain too.
Spain, Canary Islands, 50%.
Okay, nice. But for the most part, UK is like wide open. That's pretty much where you're seeing a lot of your Game of Thrones. Just Game of Thrones. They shoot everywhere in UK.
Like from the total spend. So if I had spent $1 million, then I would get 30 to 40%. Yeah. Yeah.
Of what you spent there.
Qualified, right? So after the auditor goes through, it says, oh, you did spend this,
And mind you, it's 34. It's not the entire budget, because if you shot also in Africa, if you shot in Australia, it depends on what you shot in certain parts of Ireland. And so it would be 30 to 40% of what you shot in Ireland from that. Exactly. Budapest is really popular. What else?
I would also say, because we're talking about UK, and this was something I did for somebody, is like there's that new incentive. They're all advertising it amazingly well, but it's 80% of the spend in the UK. So if I were to spend 10 mil, I can only put 8 mil to that percentage. And although it was a 40%, it comes out to like a 32% because you deduct that 20%.
And they also have a special British spend that you can do. Like, let's say your company is, out of London. I think it even gets even more, where you have the what was it? It's called the EVAC, something like that. Sorry, I forget. But basically, it's like a videotape agreement. If you're videotaping in anywhere in Great Britain, you get a special bonus, so to speak. But it's not for other people. If you're coming from Australia to shoot, or from Canada to shoot, louder. If you're coming from Canada to shoot or anywhere else, this is just primarily from like English-born residents shooting in Great Britain, anywhere, or England.
Can we?
Is it taxed, or is this what you're talking about?
pot of money that the government. UK is a refundable tax
It's
credit.
refundable tax. It's a rebate. They use different language for, different countries use different languages, but imagine just a rebate. If you spend, 100 million, you're going to get 30 to 40% of that back, but you've got to go through the hassle of doing what we're talking about, the tax incentives and breaking everything down and making sure you have all your spending, detailed and intact, so their government can go through it to make sure they're giving you what you deserve.
Because I just want to piggyback what Ricky is. Can we just switch to the next slide and then come back to this one? Because I think you were talking about the different locations. We have a slide that actually showcases some of where it is, so Prod Pro put this together. And, Ricky's talking about the United Kingdom, like 5.91 billion, right, in 2024, and it's been going up. Very often you see here the US, because we're talking more from a US perspective, you see a lot of English language. So that's why you see UK, Ireland. In the bottom left, you'll go to bottom right, Australia, New Zealand, obviously Canada, being one, but others are, you see quite a bit in like Eastern Europe or Germany, Hungary, Czech, that area. I know, Louise, we don't really have it much here for LATAM,
There's
but
like no LATAM on that map.
There's what? No,
there's no LATAM, nor Spain, which is also like throwing itself into the race. Like they're trying to take over for Europe, and they invested, I want to say, like $2 billion in the last year just to like bring more attractions. They just launched the biggest like video production stage in Basque Country or something like that. So that just came out this week. So I mean, everybody has different like mechanisms to try to lure people.
And one of the things, we can stay on this slide, but one of the things, the questions on that one was, well, how is it different to go shoot in, foreign territories, foreign countries, as opposed to the US?
Just the incentive and the creative aspect of it.
What is the difficulty of getting incentive in these jurisdictions or to literally film there?
Yes.
The incentives are legally, it becomes more expensive in these other countries because you can't just do it from the US. Essentially, you'd have to have a corporate, foreign companies kind of doing it, and you have to kind of set it up foreign. So it ends up being legally, like your legal costs will increase. Whereas in the US, you just throw a company up, run your budget through it, you're done. Foreign is a little bit more, you have to have production service arrangements and different things that you'll need some lawyers for. So it's a little more costly, I guess, in that regard.
And you also have tax, right? So like if you were to have go to Colombia, let's say, and you're shooting $10 million worth, which is a lot of money for Colombia, but you get 40%. But if you take the money out, now you get 8% out. So you actually come back with a 32%. So then same thing in other territories, people might get taxed if you take the money out of the UK, or taxed out of like Australia. Anytime you cross the line, someone might get taxed. But like, for example, White Lotus, which we'll talk about, they have an exemption law that came into effect last year. And it came in January when it was actual law. And it was like anybody above the line was going to be exempt from paying tax in that territory. So now anyone I import, it doesn't have to pay tax. They only have to pay tax in their local territory. And that's an advantage. That's a cost savings to the production.
So that's like they have double tax treaties, essentially. It's all in treaties between countries, essentially. You're whether or not you pay tax. And I wouldn't call it paying tax. I think it's like you're going to pay tax in the US. Somebody's paying tax wherever you go. So like you're paying tax. So whether it's foreign tax or you're going to pay US tax, it's one or the other.
So you should hire the right accountant, everybody. You should definitely get your expert accountant right away. Start interviewing tomorrow. All right, question at the back, and then we'll jump on to the next slide.
From your experience, is it easier to get a tax incentive in a specific place? Like your script hinges on, say you want to shoot in Aspen, Colorado. Would that make it easier to get a tax incentive from that location, or it doesn't really matter what the content of your script is? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter outside of some of what Ricky and Luis have mentioned, which is like whether it be a cultural test or something in the script that you can't do. Like in Texas, I think you can't have Texans in a negative light. So outside of, right, like so Waco couldn't be filmed in Texas. They didn't want that. So like, but outside, but these are very rare. Again, there's billions of dollars here, billions of incentives. So don't get too like distracted. It's great money and it's not that hard to get.
Sometimes the personal incentive is better if you, let's say, like when I worked on Ninja Warrior, we do city to city to city, letting them know that, hey, we're going to be in somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Like that's a real good incentive for their department of revenue to say, hey, we really want them here. We can get on TV, et cetera, et cetera. They can bring more jobs to the area, kind of hypes us up. And so sometimes they do strike a deal or make things, worthwhile for you to be there. And yeah, I don't see Aspen, being shot much. I think they want it that way. So yeah, Aspen should be on the map.
Okay, we've got 1 and 2, and then if we can jump the slide.
What's the minimum spend you're seeing?
Changes depending on places. There's some places in the US it's like 50,000, some places it's $500,000.
Sometimes they want a percentage of the actual budget too. They're like, okay, we need you to spend at least 15% of your entire budget here in our state or in our city. That's sometimes a demand as well.
And is that again something you can find by calling the film office? Or at least that would be a starting point.
Yeah.
And then they could direct you to whomever.
And then even like something that Ricky had said earlier is like, maybe some of these places will help you out. So for in the case of some of these major big ones, like might be like they throw airlines or hotels, or they will remove the taxes on the hotel. So then that's a cost savings to the production. So these are all little nuances that as you are trickling the numbers and getting these opinion letters and like figuring out the modules, like that's how you kind of say, oh, this is approximately what I'm gonna get. There's like a wiggle room, but they kind of are pretty standard.
Okay, and we had a second question. Yeah.
Yeah, in Vancouver or Canada, how they shoot for other like US locations quite often. But like in South America or Europe, if you go there and you shoot in a specific country, can you shoot for something else? So for example, like in South America, if you wanted to shoot in Mexico, but Uruguay had better incentives, can you go to Uruguay and be like, hey, we're going to pretend like this is Mexico? Or, is that...
Emilia Perez is an example of that, right? They never shot in Mexico.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying it. Mexico doesn't have an incentive. They actually give like a tax rebate of like whatever you spend there, but it's like something like the VAT really that they're giving you. There's no actual law that says if you spend this amount and on this date, you'll get X, Y, and Z. There's none of that. But like, for example, your question was well worded where like, if I wanted to go to Uruguay, so Uruguay has like, let's say 20%. Let's say you wanted to make it look like Aspen. So you put a virtual production wall. Now you spend all that money in Uruguay. So then that will count towards that. So let's say if you can make it look like that and it has the locations, then fine. Like I had a show from a streamer that was looking for like all sorts of locations and topographies. So they were considering a couple territories in LATAM. And then, even like Puerto Rico was like, we can make anything look like this, depending on what you're trying to make it look. Because they wanted some Europe, they wanted some desert, some jungle. It was a very specific show. And it was a period piece, but the contenders, it depends on what your production service company is on the ground, right? For example, True Detective was shot as Alaska, but it was shot in Iceland. And it was the first time that Iceland had beefed up its incentive. So they got an extra 10% on that. And they hired, I think, there was a requirement on how many Icelandic people you have to hire. So that was the first show to come in and actually do that. And then Superman came in right after them and took over the facilities. But they have one stage in Iceland, right? So these are like the infrastructure kind of probably Ricky questions were like, is there a stage? Who's the film commissioner? Is there enough crew? Who are the production service companies?
Hotels. Do you have hotels?
Shopping. Is there a good shopping center next to the hotels? Because some of these talent, they don't want to go to some rinky dinky place.
So it's not common that it's a prerequisite that you're depicting the area that you're shooting in, right?
Okay. Yeah, you can make it like, and also because you have virtual production stages, like who says you can't just make a virtual production wall in Canary Islands and knock out that 50%?
What they all care about is that you spend the money there and you pay tax on that money.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, we got one more, and then Dustin, let's switch the slide whenever you're ready.
So my question is kind of going off of like you saying spending the money there, and also you saying that they want you to have like a percentage of people who live in the area working on the film. What's like the range of percentage of local hires that they would prefer to see working on a production?
It changes on.
Well, that's not everywhere that they, you can bring crew in from somewhere else. And so they're not even resident, they don't have to be residents there. It all depends on the incentive. Typically, they will incentivize residents more, let's just say. But if non-residents are paying tax there, then cool, right? So it's, and then there's some residency issues depending on the incentives where you just do have to start collecting residency, forms and things like that. But for the most part, just shoot everything you like. The takeaway is just shoot everything you can there with everything you can to maximize the incentive based on the rules that are there. And all the, these incentives are all over the world. So they're all different. They all have a little something different to them. So, to answer one question in this room about like one specific thing is really hard because we don't know where you're going and we don't really know. So when you can narrow it down where you want to shoot, essentially is when you can start really getting specific with questions like that, which are, do you need to be residents there? But you can bring in people also.
And I think as Luis was saying previously, it's going to close your eyes, open them, it's changed again. So, you have to keep having those conversations where you're going, are we still good with this? What's new today?
Like in Puerto Rico, for example, there's above the line, there's non-resident resident that is included above the line and below the line. Like Georgia, everyone and their mother counts, depending on, that. But in some places, let's say Colorado, maybe it doesn't include, even if you brought them from outside. I'm not well versed in the Colorado incentive, but I don't think there is one. And if there
is not one.
Yeah. So I already knew that just because of the brain in I was basically the human computer at my old job. So, but anyways, and that was a place, even if I imported them, and maybe airplanes count, maybe the hotel counts. Like for example, in Colombia, if I brought her, she's American, the moment she lands in my territory, now I can start racking that up. And that flight may count in and out of the hotel, her transportation, all that stuff will count towards that spend. But there's more if you're actually local based crew, then there's more percentages that go up.
I think it's also worth mentioning that even if they don't have an incentive that we have listed up here, like as a tax credit or refundable, if you went to anywhere, if you wanted to shoot, Colorado doesn't have an incentive, but if you went to the Colorado Film Office or you went to they have some cash. Like, I don't know, it won't be much, but they have cash. Everyone's got cash wherever you go. They want you to shoot there. Why? Because everybody on the ground there will pay tax. They will eat your food. They will do your dry cleaning. It's an ecosystem that just collects money for the jurisdiction. The entertainment industry is the only industry that is so mobile. You can just run around and drop hundreds of millions of dollars in places, and everybody's like, "Hey, drop it here." That's what this is. That's how this was created. So really, there's just money everywhere if you can promote their jurisdiction, have a video of the director saying this place is great. That's really what they want. They want you to promote where they are and then employ people around there, go into the schools, teach the crew how to make movies in local towns, put people to work. That's what it really is all about. That's really what you're doing.
And Nicole, I liked your point that you were saying, hey, even if they don't have something set in stone for this week, go ask them, go tell them, hey, I want to do this. How do we make that happen? So grab your Moxie, put it in your carry-on bag and head on over. Go talk to some people and see what you can have happen.
And if I can expand on that, on your question a little bit, all the Chicago TV shows, like it started with one TV show and then it went to Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, and then Chicago Hope. That started off as one Chicago show, and they had a specific requirement. Okay, you got to hire 20% people from the Chicago area. And fast forward to all the shows now it's totally union. And now they make it to where it's okay, you have to hire someone from outside of Chicago on the show. So it's 90% Chicago people, 10% force hires somewhere else. So it changes drastically. Yeah, but it's complicated, but it changes all the time. So calling those people and letting them know, hey, we're going to shoot there. this is what we want to spend. What do you have to offer, or what can we offer you? We're offering you thousands of dollars in this town, and could you help us out in these areas? And that's kind of how it just sort of snowballs into your favor.
I love that. How can we help you by bringing this money in here? Here's what we want to do to help you. Now help us to help you. All right, I got Dustin, and then I need to know more about why we have White Lotus and Succession up here, Luis.
Yeah, we have a question from Jeffrey. Who leads states or countries with tax incentives? So for example, in the US, like Georgia leads when it comes to incentives, but internationally, how else does that, background?
Well, we were talking
I would
about
say
UK.
Canada, because it's one of the older ones, and it's actually like you just do the paperwork, you'll get it. It's like a total Nicole situation. Like just it's there, you're gonna get it. Just do the paperwork. There's no like isms. Whereas, let's say you want to go to Spain, like there's actually a territory in Spain that will give you 70%, but you actually need to have it in Basque. So like, who speaks Basque? I don't know. So I mean, is there a stage? That's another question. So there's a lot of little things there.
I love this, you guys. All right, so White Lotus and Succession, one show with multi-locations. Oh, and we were talking, Ricky, you touched on this briefly already, where you're talking about, well, you're shooting part of it here, part of it there, part of it everywhere, part of it in Narnia,
How do you book it? How do you account for it?
And they have magic
fun.
door spend on that. Yeah, so how, oh Lord, help me here, right? What is this? How do we make this happen?
It works. A lot of pre-production, lots of people. It's very hard to do with like just single entity departments. And for the most part, when you're dealing with a studio, they have people that do this for you. They have people that know about tax incentives, know about tax returns. And so they know all these details about these different states and these different cities in these different states. So you're going there regardless if you want to go there or not, regardless of the weather, you're going there. They did the legwork. This is where we're going to get the incentive from. The paperwork is done. And that's that, unless you're an independent production and then you sort of hire somebody like me. And then I sort of do the legwork with the line producer or coordinators, executive producers, and we figure out where is the best place for us to be production wise and how easy is it for us to get from point A to point B to point C from San Francisco. Okay, we're staying in San Francisco. Are we going to be burnt out in San Francisco? Do we need a layover somewhere, more like Las Vegas, where it's not so, where it's like hotels are nice, food is good, etc. And then we can go on to Cleveland, or we can go on to, Miami, those sorts of things. So you got to take in, where you're going, your personnel, how long you're going to be there, the weather, what you're actually doing. And it just takes a lot of legwork, a lot of people, more people, the better. But single entity wise, it's just a lot of pre-planning, just like you're planning a big, long family or business trip with multiple locations, like you're driving cross country, but just include dozens of people and plan it out as big as you can.
And I think the one thing that Ricky's also saying is like moving, right? The moment you move people, it's money. You're spending that money. Let it be flights, transpo. The clock is running the moment the actor's leaving the hotel room, right? So those are all things you take into consideration when they're moduling those things. The reason we put those two is because we were asking for examples, and we had said that, for example, with White Lotus, there was like 4 jurisdictions, and they said these are the 4 they're going to go to. Is there a film office? Who is the right person? Who are the top production service companies? Is there a stage? Because actually the internals are shot in stage. And then the other part would be like, what is the number of the incentive and all that? Is there enough crew and all that stuff? And on those specifics we've been talking about. And then with Succession, it was like the final season, if we just take that as an example. They had that part in Norway. So that one episode was shot in Norway. So how did they facilitate that? Who is the production service on the ground there that can do that? And then the final episode was actually done in Barbados. So when they were saying, we want to go to LATAM, they had this vision of a house that they wanted, and they had requirements. Like it had to have a private runway. It had to be a home with the beach view. And, they only found that house in Barbados. And although there was no incentive, there was other things that the Barbadian government threw that made it worth their time. There was also a direct flight out of New York. So that helped a lot.
So my question for you, is it more fun to be able to do all those multi-steps and everything? Or are you going,
I love
Negative.
that.
Negative.
Negative.
I would say I saw a show with 17 incentives because they did posts on so many places. I think if you have the right accounting people, the right finance, and if you start out right, if the train leaves the station correctly from an accounting point of view, from a legal point of view, then you're okay. But if it's like, no, I want to go to Barbados and I want to go to Colombia, and like you don't even know anything, it's gonna be like a shit show.
See, I love it. Different perspectives. Nicole's like, I love doing this because I'm figuring out the incentives. Then we have the production accountant going, no. In fact, I will never.
She's who I
work with
report
you."
to, though. So
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Do I need to have all of the budget available? Thanks. Do I need to have all of the budget available before I would even go to seek tax incentives?
yes. Yes. You want to go?
I'm not really sure how to answer it, just because like you should know, generally speaking, where you can't put a budget together unless you know where you're going, because then you wouldn't know what the costs were or wherever you're kind of going. So you would have an idea about where you would want to shoot at that point, and then it might be like, okay, well, how do I take that budget of what I think I have and then do a comparison budgets basically based on different jurisdictions, is what I think.
Yeah, your question is, do I have to have the money? Like, do I have 50% or do I need 70% or 100% once I push the button? And for me, the answer I would give you is it's got to be 50% or more. That's just a shorter answer, because there are places like in Finland that they will, if you're 50% financed already, they will actually give you the incentive in steps already. So you would get some money for pre-pro and production, and then kind of help you along the way, as long as 50% or more is already financed. But in some places, yeah, you need to have this amount already locked in.
I would also say that the rules on how you apply and when they are telling you you need to have your filming started by is an issue. So you wouldn't want to apply for an incentive if you can't shoot within the time that they want you to roll camera. So you do sort of need to, but the incentives do come more towards the end of when you're putting your packages together to get, your money and ready to go. This is like the last money because it's the known money. Essentially, the rest of it is harder for you guys. Like that's the harder part, is putting those packages together. By the time you get to this place, you're going to find a place to shoot and you'll have your budget for wherever you want to shoot.
And I believe we have a slide coming up, not quite yet, but that shows the timeline of like, okay, well, when are you applying? By when do you need to be shooting? When will you expect the money back? So that's coming up later. Yeah, I know we all like to dream. Luis, you looked at me like,
Because I've heard of people who never paid or were like still struggling after a couple 18 months,
Okay. Well, hey, we've already talked about this a little bit, budget integration. So how to account for production incentives during your pre-production budgeting and financing. We've talked about that a little bit already. Do we have any other points we wanted to add to that, or are we jumping to the monetizing transfer?
Those are the ones that I think who brought it up. These are the questions always get asked to filmmakers, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're ready for those questions.
Yeah, so you guys start your chat GPT when you get home, you guys, to help you prompt that. The questions you're asking the film that are getting asked to you guys, what is your financing? 100% tax rebate. How fast do you need the money? And where are you shooting? What state are you shooting in? What territory? Whatever. Nobody has an answer.
I'm not even sure I understand the question. So you're saying when you're filming, what do you need in your budget essentially for to calculate the tax credits?
So basically the third bullet point of what are the questions that filmmakers are going to be asked when they're going into to get their money and to get their incentives and their rebates.
Like maybe if I'm understanding this here, so once you spend the money, right? Now we're like in post, right? Then you would start what's called like post accounting, right? And so that's when you're engaging like maybe auditing firms, depending on the jurisdiction. Some require, some don't. you need to also know the deadline, right? So she was talking about like a deadline about going to camera even. There's even like a deadline of when that audit needs to happen, because if you miss that deadline, you won't get the money. So some places it might be like 60 days after final spend an audit. But what happens if you get one more charge coming in? And that's your world where like, oh, we got the music rights now finally, like a year later. But I mean, I think the other question that you were kind of asking is like, what do I need to have ready when I'm going to push the button ready? So I would say you need to have a budget, you need to have a schedule, you need to have, of course, the script. And those are things that the film offices will all ask usually, like at least for some kind of review, not always the script, but it'll be like at least the budget. What's that number? Like you can't say, oh, look, I'm going to spend $10 million. And then be like, oh, look, I only got 5. It's not going to work like that. You'd have to reapply. And depending on where you're going, or let's say you spent more than 10 mil. So now how do you do that? So there's some places that be like, okay, well, let's just open up another, thing, and you can spend the other 5 million that you're going to bring into the territory, and we'll give you X, Y, and Z. So I don't know if I'm kind of.
Well, not only that, but you're probably going to. I mean, this is all advanced money because this is so sure. This certain money. You're going to have the people that are going to give you that money are going to ensure you're in certain places before you get that money. So before you're even applying for incentives, you're already going to be working with some type of financier, or the distributor might be giving you the advance for the incentive, or the banks will you're not going to really have this money yourself. Like you're not going to use like equity money or, that money to kind of do it. You're going to find money, and those people are going to make sure you have what you need to start an incentive process for sure.
And if I can add one more thing, the film commission is going to want to know what your production company is all about, who you guys are, who are your players, who are your executives, who owns it. Is it owned by a parent company? Is it a studio? They're going to want to know all those details, tax ID information, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to want to know a lot of like detailed information about who is fronting this money, where's the money coming from, and how you intend to spend it. So yeah, a budget, and basically what the company is that is making this production. Because sometimes companies that aren't production companies make movies, make TV shows, and it doesn't end well. So they want to make sure that they're putting, their energy into something that's worthwhile.
And like even with that, like they may ask for like articles of incorporation, right? So those are things that you may have to like get, apostilled internationally. So then that way they know, okay, this is actually on file, and we can double check and cross it. The one thing I would add is also you need like the right legal counsel. So like usually in every territory, there's like maybe like 2 or 3 really specialized entertainment lawyers or firms. And those were the people that I would always talk to from my Sony time onto like HBO, because they're the ones that can tell you, hey, you know what? Pennsylvania's got this deadline. If you want that money and she can go find me some buyer for it, can you give it to me by this date? And, then you can get it. Because if you don't get it by this date, you might be out of that pool of money and have to reapply.
Yeah, how do we get legal? Yeah, you will need a legal team to help you facilitate the paperwork at some point.
I love that you brought that up, because you're thinking, oh, okay, wait, I'm just going to use my movie magic budgeting software and I'm going to do my budget, and I'm in. And then I'm going to go talk to Aspen's, film office, never living it down. And I'm going to say, here, man, I'm going to be bringing this all into you. And I want this, I want this all sorted. And then we're going to use LegalZoom and TurboTax, and we're going to make it happen. Yeah, these looks of disgust on everybody's
You're spending
faces.
millions of dollars. And so it's good to have a second pair of eyes, a third pair of eyes, fourth pair of eyes on it.
Well, and I love that, because then you're thinking, well, fine, I need to hire a line producer. Fair enough, I can do that. But now you're reminding me, oh, wait, no, I need to make sure I have the entertainment lawyers lined up too. Not only just my one here in LA, but in Aspen and in every
Colombia.
place.
Like, I mean, yeah, you need the budget breakdown in that territory, even. So like in Colombia or in Hungary or in Canada. And it has to be like numbers from there. Like a line producer here, let's say, may have an idea, but you're going to really have to go to somebody who's on the ground who has those real numbers.
And also because it's not in English. So your applications are going to not be in English if you, depending on which country you're in. So, and typically you'll use the production service companies there will be the applicants for some of those.
Yeah, that's all the international shows are like that.
That's good to remember as well. Oh, wait, I'm hiring somebody else that knows the steps already.
Knows the
I'm not doing
language,
it
knows,
myself.
knows who pushes the button and who the right office is, right? That's why you're paying them.
And choose wisely in that department.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Okay, let me see. I feel like we've kind of talked about that quite a bit. Can we jump to the next slide?
If we,
Oh, sorry.
so yeah, can we, because just for time wise, maybe even the next one, this one was really more about, we created a fake movie. We created a fake movie, The Panel Pandemonium, right? Like, and the main idea of this one really was, and we're just gonna skip it quick, is very often when particularly when I'm talking to a lot of independent filmmakers, they hear these wonderful things about like, oh my God, a 30%, rebate. Just because your budget's 10 million doesn't mean you get, 30% of that, the 3 million back, right? Like there's so many different, like areas that you won't get it because you have above the line, depending on where you shoot, the multiple locations, so just realize that just the 30% doesn't mean you're going to get 30% of your entire budget, right? And this was just kind of showcasing you won't get it, so doing that rough math isn't the same case. And you need really to understand where your money is being spent, how is it being spent on a local level. I love Nicole talking about the idea of like, just because you're filming in New Jersey, but people are staying then in New York because they want to stay in Manhattan. I don't know if you want to just quickly.
And we're going to show right now, and they're filming in New Jersey, and I'm like, well, no one's going to stay in New Jersey. They're going over to Manhattan. They're going to stay in Manhattan. So like, I know your plan, right? Your plan is like everybody's going to stay in Jersey City, and they're all going to just like pay for housing here, and they're going to buy. Like, no, they're going to hop a ferry or a subway, and they're going to go over to New York City. So that won't qualify. So you have to. When you're planning, you don't really know where they're going to spend the money. The other thing I want to say on this slide too is I know one of the questions that Dustin asked from the audience that's on Zoom was which jurisdictions are sort of the best. And everybody hears about Georgia and everybody's talking about Georgia, and it's a 30% tax credit. I can tell you right now, the effective tax rate is probably closer to between 19 and 21%. You're not getting 30. That is what everybody think, that's what they're promoting. But I'm telling you, at the end of the day, you're not going to get that.
Well, and one of the things that, you had mentioned, Nicole, earlier in our previous conversation that I thought was important to bring up was, hey, you're forgetting that all these brokers and everybody, they get their fees out of these credits, the money that you're getting back.
That's in the transferable.
Right.
Yeah, so the transferable states are where the government doesn't have cash to give to the film programs. Instead, they're going to collect less tax. And how do they do that? Well, they give a tax credit to the production company. And then that production company is staring at a piece of paper going, what do I do with that? Because I don't have any tax liability. Because in your film companies that you're going to be producing from to get an incentive will have zero tax liability because you have no income. Because every dollar comes in, every dollar is spent. That's it, zero. So you have no tax liability. You have to monetize it, and you'll monetize it by selling it to anyone that has tax liability. And so there are brokers that come in here and like anybody will buy it for like, let's say 90 cents on the dollar. The broker will be 2 cents, let's say. So you're actually going to net 88 cents of whatever the number is over here. So that's how transferable tax credits work, basically. And I don't often ever see them foreign. So a transferable tax credit is really a US concept. I've seen it in the Dominican, or so they tried, right? So, but
Puerto Rico, but still US.
yeah. So like, but other than that, it's really a domestic issue for transferables.
Yeah, it's always US bought.
Yeah, but I mean, like in Canary Islands, you can actually, it's like they'll say that, and then you take it to the bank, they take that 5% as like their broker fee, and they'll front you up the money as a cash flow.
Applications and compliance, best practices. Okay, we talked about why brokers are essential, and we've been dancing around some of the common challenges and legal considerations. And then our timing, we started talking about as well. How long does this take? A week? Forever. So if we have more that we want to jump in on these topics, because again, I like that we've already kind of mixed them in with our
shows
convo.
for years. Like every show I have is probably I'm on it for 3 years, maybe sometimes 4. So it takes a very long time to go through this whole process, for sure.
Yeah, I'm in a 8-month process right now, and it's continuously going because again, you're dealing with people that don't really care that you're working on a production and that the show wrapped and that the show is airing, that sort of thing. It's like you've already gone home and they're still dealing with your paperwork because on their desk it's just another pamphlet filled with paper. It doesn't matter if there's actors involved, if there's all these stunts involved, it's just another piece of paper. So the best thing to do is to try to shorten it and have all your paperwork as clean as possible in the beginning. So when they get it, they don't have much to ask you. They're always going to push something back. They're always going to have questions. They're always going to have some kind of audit form that they have to check just to do their job. And so you don't want them not doing their job, but you also want them to have less to do. So it's a fine line, and it all revolves around getting as much paperwork done and all your T's crossed and your I's dotted before they get it.
And I would actually, to add to this point, there's a jurisdiction in the US that if you go back and change something in that application, then your application now goes to the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
So now that's the reason, like dotting your I's, crossing your T's, having the right auditor, knowing that paperwork is really essential, not from the beginning, but through the end.
And then one other thing is that the way you should think about this is the timing of getting the money back, is that you're paying interest on that money that's hitting you, that you have to come up with and pay for, because typically you're going to have some type of loan or it's somebody else's money that you're using here. So you're going to be, the longer it takes, the more money you spend. So start thinking about a cost benefit analysis of the that's also kind of like, which jurisdiction do I go to? One with the shortest amount of time based on that cost of money, or one of longer, and it matters. And so your production finance folks, wherever you're going to find them on your show, they care about when that money comes back in.
And they ask you weekly, where is that money? When is it coming back? What's the process? Why is it taking so long? Like,
and
the government.
Yeah, and I even had a show where like they kept asking me, and like I called the guy, and finally I got him on the phone, and we had the same last name, so we bonded on that. And then literally we got the incentive right after. I mean, so it's about also personal relationships. Like it matters who your accountant is. Does your accountant know who to talk to in New Mexico? So when the studio's knocking on that door saying, "Hey, where's my money? I need my Q4 to actually match," they can say the accountant can call the right person, and you see that check coming through for your your KPIs or all.
And just to circle back around one more minute,
please.
Just to circle back around, another good reason refundables are one thing because that's coming through the tax department, but cash rebates and grants one office is giving you that check, so you don't have to wait for everything. So those would be the shortest amount of time. So when you're looking at monetization and the timing of it, the quicker you can get the cash is when you have less government authorities involved, or less people involved, less levels and layers involved. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Right where you're at, I'm just concerned, or I heard that some states will say they have this money and then it's like 18 months, 2 years, and you're not getting it.
Laws change.
Yeah,
it's all marketing.
Who wants to give away money?
Yeah.
That's right. Who wants to give away money, right? It's there for you, but they don't really want to give it to you, right? So there is that, those issues. And some of the jurisdictions that have been notoriously difficult are New York. And I mean, very simply, the way in which they allocate their money, that's a refundable tax credit program. And they get, $420 million every year, let's just say, right? They take that money and then they have to pay it out. And then it sits on some bureaucrat's, desk. And, when they're going through budget crises and things like that, all of a sudden they don't know where your file is, but we waited, 3 years or more just for them to write out checks. And that incentive is one where you get paid out differently for each year. So you're looking at almost 8 or 9 years before you're seeing like the full amount of money come back for your show. And that is not a joke.
That doesn't work for the independents, right?
Right.
You know, it works for the studios because they have like these.
I would say it works for the studios, but like they'll live with it because they've already shot and now you have, what are you going to do? So you just have to wait for them to decide one day to like pay you out. And, so there are definitely complications at some level, essentially. And Georgia is setting themselves up to follow New York because what they've done is they have now, and what I mean by that is you get a CPA audit report and you in New York also, as well as Georgia, and you hand it in to be like, okay, we'll review it and say everything is fine and give me my money. And what's happening is they're just holding it. And there's really no reason for them to be holding it. There just isn't, because the audit's already been done by someone else and they've already certified it under your laws. And so now what happens is that Georgia didn't used to do that. They used to just you filed and then they would pay you, but now they're holding on to that audit report and then not issuing a certificate. And typically they look at their budget and they're like, okay, well, I want this much revenue for this year. So we'll pay the certifications out the next year. And so I think, I'm not in the brain of the Georgia Department of Revenue, but as an outsider and having dealt with this for decades with these people, I would say that there is some internal reason for them keeping.
You're absolutely right. I know we're short on time, but you will need to have an outside auditor do an audit of your work before you submit it to any Department of Revenue, to any government entity. And the entertainment auditors are much more expensive than your basic CPA auditors. I mean, it's in the like 20s of thousands of dollars.
And some places have like their vetted vendors that you could only use. Or like, so that like I think Rhode Island is one of those, but yeah, it's like those are the only ones. So if Nicole's on the list, you can go to Nicole as if she was an auditor.
I'm not an auditor.
I know you're not, but I'm just saying, like, if she
but
was the auditor, like it'd be like that would be it. Like,
I work with all the auditors.
So, but it would seem to me that when the time is right, people could come to you or to whoever official person and say, hey man, I'm thinking of shooting here, or here. Can you give me that guidance? And here are the budgets I've worked up. And can you give it a once over for me? And give that recommendation. Kind
Absolutely.
of a different kind of opinion letter, to bring it back to the beginning, to get that kind of intel where you're going, well, Georgia sounds fantastic. Wait, what? Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all trying to just give you enough information to say, incentives are amazing. You should all try to get them because you should. But
it's a lot more complicated than we think.
It's doable, right? It's money. You have to work for it, right? So yeah, you will.
And we've talked about a lot of this. Look at you guys, how fabulous you are. You would think they had memorized all of the deck or anything. So yeah, we need to, how do you flag or itemize your costs? How do you itemize stuff, you guys? That's a fancy way of saying for your project, make sure you itemize them and put them in the right spots, right? All right, done. Hire the right accountant, done. Loan out, we kind of talked about that. I feel good about that because I'm looking at the time. Dustin's giving me the clock. Then the correct contacts. Yeah, we talked about that. Make sure you're talking to the right person. Talk to them again, talk to them a third time, see who else you need to talk to. Because like you were saying, to them, to whatever person, you're just another pile of paper. They might not know all the nuances or be able to connect those dots because they don't speak entertainment.
Yeah, make a relationship with everyone you talk to. Doesn't matter if they are in Florida, in Maine, just, make a relationship with them.
And I would totally agree with that. Like we did Tennessee for Sony the first time. The lady who handled the paperwork for the person actually was from Panama. And I was like, we bonded on the fact of Panama. She was my best friend after that. But it was like, that was it. Like she got it, she understood that what we were doing, and then we could find that middle ground. So the government people that's more bureaucratic and slower can deal with the Hollywood, which is like, we need it as of yesterday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Love it.
Putting a face to that paperwork.
As with anything, really, you always want to be able to have a personal relationship when possible. Makes sense to me. I'm so happy we've already talked about the rest of those. Next slide. Bam, look at us going through it. We've talked about California. Let's keep going. Let's do it. And we've got some dates there as well. So, when you finally get the playback, you're going to be in luck. You can pause that. Okay, we also, I feel like we can keep going right now, huh? Let's keep going. Okay, so this was our timeline for doing the tax credits. I liked that it was just like, here you go. You're doing your initial allocation in month 1. 2 through 6 is your pre-production. 6 through 12 is your production. So you're already a year in, up to a year and a half for post-production, and then on to 2 years. Ooh, look at that. Some nice money coming back to you. Wait a minute, 2 birthdays have passed, you guys. And they've already gone to Toronto. They've already got all their distribution. It's now streaming on Prime, or Max, I should say Max. And now here's your money. All right, and your drink. Next slide, let's do this. Okay, benefits. Okay, we already talked about this. This is fantastic. Boosting local economy, creating jobs, foreign investment, tourism, cultural exchange, encouraging the infrastructure development. You're welcome, Aspen. Next slide. Okay, so our funding categories here for California, we're looking at the TV series, feature films, new series, independent films. Look at that, 4.8% for all of us doing our indies. Just saying. All right, next slide.
That's a hard money to get.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Georgia's looking better. All right, we've got a couple resources up there for you, you guys. Got some resources. Please take a picture of that. Everybody smile. Hey. So we've got the EP incentives, so entertainment partners, of course, rap book, Georgia Film Commission, and then, of course, as we've said several times, go to your local film commission site as well.
My favorite book is not up here. It's the Cast and Crews book is my
When
favorite
was the last
book.
one?
He just issued it.
Oh, great.
Okay, the new Cast and Crew book,
That's my
all right.
favorite book.
Is it just US or is it international?
Both.
Okay, I think there's going to be a run on the new Cast and Crew book tomorrow morning, or actually tonight, say 9:15 after we network.
Everything in there it won't be like it's all going to be old information by the time it's in your hand. But, but it gives you a really good idea of what might be going on.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, how fortunate are we to have these amazing experts up here, everybody? Give it up for Nicole. Give it up for Louise.
And Jennifer.
And for Jennifer for moderating. Yes.